Hey guys, just a public service announcement. If you like the videos, like and subscribe. Morgan approves this message. Hey everybody, welcome back. So I recently purchased a Neje Master 2 laser engraver with the 40-watt laser module. So this video is going to be the setup and just my general overview of it. And then at the very end we'll see what we can cut with the Master 2. I think I've got some, I think it comes with some stuff to test cut, and then I've got some hard maple out there, some figured maple, oak. I got some resin, some plexiglass out there, so we'll see what it can cut and what it can engrave. Stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, before we get started, just a couple little house cleaning issues. I have started a video on putting some RGB pixels around my front window. It's kind of the first installation part of my light show series. So that'll be coming out in a little bit. It's going to show kind of the jig I used to do the drilling in the PVC pipe, and then the brackets I used to mount it to the wall. I also going to get some grilling videos coming out. So one of the ones I have in mind to do is kind of how you clean a Traeger grill and how often. And I do have a rack of ribs out that I'm looking at setting up a video on doing how I do ribs. You know, what sauce I like to use, what seasonings, my time, temperature. So that's all coming up. Lots coming up now that the weather's getting a little bit warmer. And I am looking for comments on how I can improve things, what I may be doing wrong, basically any criticism, what you like, what you want to see. So keep that in mind. Leave me some comments. I will read all of them and I will reply. This is a learning experience for me. I really want to grow into it. So I'm looking for you guys to give me a hand on how to do it. So now it's time to go open up the laser and put it together and see how it works. Let's go. And take 6. So I'm actually trying something a little bit new today. I filmed the video about a week or so ago, and instead of doing kind of a step-by-step, you know, talking about what's going on as I go, I'm going to do a little narration, see how that works. Changing things up. So you can see here, we got the box, we're doing the opening, everything's packaged really nicely. It's got the shrink wrap around it, so nice and tight, good foam, everything's got its little house in the foam. First thing we got here is the instruction manual. I heard those are good to follow, which in this case it helped me out a lot. There isn't a lot to do, it's a pretty easy setup, but there was a couple things I had to look at. Honestly, it's 5 screws to get it set up. You can see we got all our little pieces, parts, and again, everything has its little home in there, so it's nice, tightly packed, safe. There was no damage. Actually got a little bit tricky to get some of the stuff out, but I made it. Alright, we got it empty. We'll get that out of the way. So it comes with the tools, an Allen wrench and a little wrench to get it put together. Comes with the glasses, the power cable, USB cable, which I replaced the USB cable. Some zip ties. Then it's got a brush. I don't know what that's for. If you know what that's for, let me know in the comments. Got the marker for doing acrylic, and then some test pieces, a piece of wood, construction paper, metal dog tag, and a piece of acrylic. How many times can I say acrylic? The only thing I used out of this kit was the dog tag. I used my own lumber because I have multiple different types I wanted to try: oak, maple, cherry, ply. And then I had my own piece of acrylic I used, which, as you'll see later on in the video, was a massive failure. So here I am, being a good boy and reading the instructions. As you're watching the video, some of you can probably figure out basically what you do. I just wanted to make sure, as I was doing the video, I didn't want to do it wrong, which I also didn't succeed at that too. I do make a goof. So here's the first 4 screws to get the arm on the frame. It's a pretty tight tolerance. It takes a little bit of work to get it in there, and you don't want to force it. It's just aluminum. You can do damage to it, and that, I think it was $350, $400. You don't want to do too much damage. Well, you don't want to do any damage. So we'll kind of ease it in there. And there we go, it's sliding in, and then there's 4 nuts you put on. There's no washers for it, and you really don't want to reef down hard on those nuts and tighten them that hard, because you'll strip things out. Again, it's only aluminum, so get it nice and snug, but don't go crazy. Don't damage your new laser printer, laser engraver. We'll use the nice high quality wrench that they sent me from China. It did the trick. And you'll notice I'm just getting them snug, not going crazy. Everything slides pretty nicely. It's getting a little sore. Carriage slides nicely. And we'll get that saran wrap off of there. They do package it really good. They take their time. Now, I didn't use the L brackets because it doesn't come with any hardware and I didn't have any handy. Didn't really plan for that, but I will put them on eventually. Now I'm looking at connecting the connections, so there's basically 2. One is as big as day. The other I had to actually look in the instructions for, and this is where I made a mistake and have to redo putting on the mount. There's only 2 motors to it, the X and Y motor. Obviously there's not a Z motor. So right back in there is the connection for the laser. So I got to take it, there it is. I got to take it apart to connect the laser. Speed it up so you don't have to be tortured with my mistake. No, I don't actually work this fast. This whole process took me about, I would say 30 minutes, even with the goof up. So there's the connection. It's actually a pretty tight fit. There isn't a whole lot of wire there to use, so and my big fingers had a hard time getting in there. But if the wire was any longer, you'd have issues with the parts fitting together. So we'll get it put back together now that the laser is connected to the main body. Again, we're just going to snug them up. Don't want to damage them. Now, one thing I just learned, once you have the laser plugged in, you are not supposed to manually move the gantry or anything, because they said something about that actually sends power to the laser and it can damage the laser. There was a video on it. I'll have to look it up and I'll try to put it in a link, but that's probably really good to know. So the laser just slides into that little mount. There's one screw to tighten it up, and that's handy because that's also how you focus the laser. Now, I didn't focus the laser in this video, but for engraving, they say the laser module, the little module within that box there, is supposed to be about 32 inches above the work surface, 32 centimeters above the work surface, and I believe for cutting it was like 55. Might have that backwards. But I didn't focus the laser to start with here. I focused it, but I didn't do it on video. All right, so we got the laser all plugged in. And this is, of course, the 40-watt laser module. Go big or go home. Why not get the one for the future? All right. Now, next thing we'll be getting into is the app. And there's actually 2 apps. There's one in the instructions. Right there is the little link for it. And there's one in the App Store for Android. Well, I downloaded the one in the App Store originally, and I had an issue with it. It wouldn't work. I did it on my phone. I did it on my tablet. I couldn't get it to work. you have to get the one in the instructions. It doesn't look different, but that one actually worked. The one from the App Store wouldn't connect. So here we're going to give it a shot. This is a chunk of maple I had around for scrap. This is the Neje app, of course. This isn't Lightburn or anything else, so I'm just picking a basic video out, or basic picture out of there. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And the app is pretty intuitive. Didn't have to really look a whole lot up for the app. Setting the size, saving the picture. It has you choose an effect, but I don't see a difference between the effect. If anybody knows what that difference is, let me know. One thing I like about this app right here is it has this preview mode, so it basically does a little box around where it's going to burn, so you can work on aligning things up. Now, I know this isn't going to be perfect as I get into more production stuff, but I also plan on moving into Lightburn with it. That'll be another large learning process. This year is turning out to be a big year for learning. All right, now we're sending the image. We're getting our glasses on, safety first, because this was surprisingly bright for me. It makes a lot of smoke. I forget what my settings actually were on it. I have them set up for later. This was actually really high. This was me playing, and this was really cutting into the wood. And again, this is hard maple, so it's doing a really good job cutting into it. I do stop this and adjust it, and I eventually get a decent burn off of it. Not the best. And again, at the end of the video, I'll kind of show you the burns that I played with. But this is the video. This is how you put it together, and this is its first burn. Pretty simple process, doesn't take that long, and I am really impressed with the machine. It's done great, and it has really good accuracy. Alright, so we have had the laser engraver for a little bit now, about a week, and we printed some things, engraved some things. Now, I mostly deal with wood, so that's what I've got. And I got a couple different types of wood here, and I've already gotten one splinter off the maple, but I also do have some plexiglass here to use. So let's try to just take a peek at this, see if I can do this without getting any more splinters. And we'll see how everything looks. So this was the first thing I made. It was a picture I got off the phone app for Neje. I did this at 2 millisecond burn time according to the Neje app, and at 51% power. Now this was also done before I actually did any focusing on the laser, and I'll get into that in a little bit on what I had to do, but we'll get a little closer view here. My lighting isn't all that great yet, I'm trying. So, not too bad. For my first print, I was pretty impressed. Actually, alright, to be fair enough, that was, right there was my first print. That was my second, but I was tinkering. Oh, alright. There were my first prints. 100% power, that actually did make a pretty good dive into maple. And of course, I'm getting a bunch of Facebook messages now. So this was maple, fairly hard wood, does really good. Next thing I did was just some sanded plywood. Now I did this a couple of times here. This is a logo that we use on some of my grill scrapers. So this first one again was unfocused, and this little area up here was just kind of me putzing around. But I did this at 1 millimeter per second, and at 55% power. So it was a little bit dark. It wasn't quite crisp. You know, you can kind of see it's kind of missing the EST here, and wasn't the greatest. Then this is where I jumped in and I focused the laser. Hopefully I remember to talk about how I focused the laser. It was pretty easy, and I focused it for engraving because I don't really plan on cutting that much. The second one was done with the focused laser. Same settings. Actually, it was a little bit less on the power. I went 51% power just because the laser was a little bit more dialed in. But still, the 1 millimeter per second, and they both took 30 minutes. So, but you can see how much more detail we have in here, how much more detail we got here. Obviously, things were a little bit lighter, but you know, it's got a pretty good little etch into there. So, very impressed so far, and especially out of my, technically my second and third things that I engraved. So the fourth thing I actually tried to engrave was the acrylic, and I got work to do here. So I did use a little chalk marker, made it all white, and it did not get me very far. So you can kind of see, here was the first attempt. And I know it's really hard to see in there, but basically I went and I burned right through it. Cut right through. The second attempt, I got a little bit of etching on here. It's going to be really hard to see, but if I'm going to do more acrylic, I really got to dial more in on this, but it will do it. It'll just take me a little bit of learning and work, but I really don't engrave acrylic, so it is what it is. We'll just toss that aside. So the next few things I tried was the same logo, different sizes, but this was on oak. So this is what I typically engrave, especially with this logo. So the first time I did it, you know, we had our 1 millimeter per second at 51%, and you know, things were a little bit smaller, but it's there. You know, it's got alright detail, but I think some of the grain, because oak is a kind of an open grain wood, you know, if you rub your hand across it, you can kind of feel it. So I think that kind of hurt me there. So I made the picture a little bit bigger. I went 1 millisecond, 60%. And honestly, it didn't really improve all that much. So, not so good on that side. Finally, I went in, I got a little bit crazier. I went with 65% power, 2 millimeters per second. And you can see we started to get a little bit darker, but you know, I think the grain is still kind of burning me in some areas. No pun intended. But it's not getting that detail that we see here. But this works good for what my purposes would be for it. I could play with it, maybe dial it in a little bit more, but I am pretty happy with this. And again, this took 30 minutes. Now, my dad has the Neje printer. He has, I think, the 7-watt laser. This would take him like 3 hours to do this, so that is impressive so far for me. The next thing I went and did was the metal dog tag. This took me a couple of tries. Here was the first try, just kind of dialing in the settings. Basically it was, well, I got it written here somewhere. The first one I tried a bunch of different powers and kept it around the 1-2 millimeters per second. Finally started getting it dialed in. Here I say 90%. So we did this, 90%, 2 millimeters per second. That actually worked perfect. And it took a minute or so. So this I might actually do a little bit more, especially for doing inlays. That might actually be something. The last thing I have burned so far, this one was today, and it's a cherry cutting board. This one is my personal one. I had to sand it down so I could get the engraving on. Now, this has impressed me. This looks really good. I know the wood looks kind of blotchy right now, but it was used. It needs to be finished yet, but this took about 45 minutes to get this, and everything is nice, crisp, and clean. Just perfect, and I like how this nice dark color in there in the background. Now, this cutting board previously did have shellac that I let soak in, and then it had a beeswax film on it that was washed and sanded off. So I think the shellac here helped me out a little bit. but this is just perfect. And to get this lined up took all of 5 minutes. It wasn't that hard. Very easy, a lot easier than what I considered it would be. Alright, so that's the first impressions of the Neje Laser Engraver and a little bit of what it can do. Now I know it can do a lot more. It's a 40-watt laser. And as time goes on, I'll find out more things it can do, and I'll probably post some videos about it, even if they're short little clips. It's an impressive little compact laser. It's perfect for what my uses are going to be for it. So far, I haven't burned down the garage, so that's a plus. We'll see what else I can do. Actually, one of the things I want to try doing, I have some test stuff here. I want to see how it'll burn on plastic, PLA or PETG. So we'll give that a try, see maybe we just make a big melted mess, or maybe we come out with something nice. I have heard that the higher watts gets you a better cut on it, or burn. Lower watt, you just kind of melt it and it makes a mess. So we're going to give that a shot. Other than that, that's pretty much a wrap up. If you guys like these videos, give me a like, give me a subscribe. Got a couple more of you guys that subscribe. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Really helps me, and I'm getting kind of tuned into the videos that people are liking. So I started some of the meat videos, and the 3D printer videos seem to do really well. CNC is almost set up, got some power to do, and got a new freezer and a ton of meat coming, so there's going to be a lot more to come. Thanks guys, take it easy.